right, so thank you for tuning in to Chompin at the Bit. This is episode 39. Now, in this episode, we're going to take a look at the Thursday night football matchup between the Green Bay Packers and San Francisco 49ers. Going to look at some key news and notes for each team heading into the matchup. I'll give you a key for each team in order to win the matchup tonight, as well as my prediction, of course, for who will win. Also doing something a little different where I'm going to do my top 10 NFL teams going into week 9. Going to do that on this episode later on. But with the NFL, going into the second half of the year, we are in week 9. I kind of want to take a look, at the first half of the season and come up with, I guess, to start the show. This is kind of what I've been thinking about. So, who the most surprising team of the first half? There's a lot of teams that have been surprising. You could look at Arizona. You can look at maybe Buffalo, I guess. You can look at Cleveland, the Raiders. But for me, the most surprising team in the first half, I would have to say the Arizona Cardinals. They're sitting at 5-2. They are second in the NFC West. They're a half game behind Seattle. You all know how much I like Seattle this year. But yeah, for the Cardinals, they have Kyler Murray, their second-year quarterback. He's definitely stepped his game up to the next level. He's, using his feet effectively. They did bring in DeAndre Hopkins in the offseason, and that's definitely worked for their offense. He still has Larry Fitzgerald, who is the ageless one at wide receiver, still is effective. Their running game is not bad. It's good enough to keep some pressure off of Kyler Murray. The defense is, it's not top ranked, of course, but it is effective. So, sitting at 5-2, going into the second half, I think that they're in a good position to, I would say, steal a playoff spot. I think going into the year, they weren't looked at as a team that would take one of the playoff spots. So, for a team like, I guess the NFC East, I'm sure the NFC East was hoping they could maybe get 2 teams into the playoff with the extra team this year. But we all seen how bad that division is. That's probably not going to happen, and that's going to benefit a team like the Cardinals. So, looking back, their best win of the first half, I think, was the Seahawks win. You remember that game, the one where Russell Wilson and Kyler Murray went back and forth. The game went into overtime. Ultimately, the Cardinals won by a field goal. And as I said back then, that may be the game of the year. We still have, second half of the season to go, and there could be one to top that, but right now, that was definitely the game of the year for me. But of course, they do have, they only have 2 losses. They weren't exactly 2 great teams, but I think their worst loss was the loss to the Lions at home. That was at the point still where Detroit was, was a complete mess. There was all the talk about Patricia getting fired. The Cardinals were riding high off of a win the week before. So they may have overlooked the Lions, which is why they lost, but it was still a bad loss for them. And now if you look back at it, they could easily be 6-1 and tied for the division lead. Actually, they would be in the division lead if they were 6-1. So ultimately, I don't think that game's going to come back to bite them, because I do have them. So my second half prediction for them is, I'm predicting that they go 5-4 the second half, finish 10-6, and make the playoffs, which would be a great year for them. great year for Kyler Murray's development. So clearly the Kyler Murray, Cliff Kingsbury connection, coach quarterback, should have Arizona fans optimistic for the future. But with the surprising team, we got to look on the other end of the spectrum. My most disappointing team of the second half. Once again, there are several teams to go with. You could go with, the 49ers. But you got to give them kind of a pass because they've dealt with a lot of injuries, so it wouldn't be them. You could go with the Falcons. We all know all about the Falcons, why. All of their lost leads late. You go with the Patriots. They haven't performed well either. They could get kind of a pass because it's transition between Tom Brady's greatness to Cam Newton. You could look at Houston. Definitely has been disappointing. But most disappointing team to me, America's team, of course, the Dallas Cowboys. So they're 2-6 right now, which is not where many of the analysts thought they would be. Luckily for them, the division stinks, so they still have a shot. But they are now starting to deal with some injuries because we all know Dak Prescott had that nasty leg injury. He's out. The backup, Andy Dalton, he's going to be out for a couple of weeks, it seems like, with his concussion issue. They've lost their starting tackles, both of them. Ezekiel Elliott, earlier in the season, fumbling issues. I think last game he was fine, but it's still an issue. They are now down to basically their fourth string because Ben DiNucci, who started last game, he's been benched. So they're going with, I believe it's Garrett Gilbert. I doubt he's going to be the one to bring a spark to that team, but you know what you got to do, what you got to do. There's, talk of Mike McCarthy. It's his first year, mind you, but now people are already questioning whether he's right for the job and all that. Amari Cooper, mainly because the quarterback play hasn't been there, but he's not having the year that the Cowboys need. The Cowboys defense isn't good. That's not really breaking news. They haven't been that good in a few years, but on a team like this where the offense has been struggling, you would hope to have, a defense at least help you out a little bit. They're not getting that either. So at 2-6, the Cowboys easily for me, the most disappointing team in the first half. They only have 2 wins, so finding their best win was a little hard. But I would guess you'd have to pick the Falcons win. They had the fourth quarter comeback. They recovered the onside kick after the Falcons players, didn't jump on it. We all know. It led to Dan Quinn losing his job. So, for you Falcons fans, it wasn't that bad. But yeah. Their worst loss, there's plenty of them. But I do think their loss to Washington, when they lost like 25-3, I think that's the worst loss easily. There are too many, I would say, weapons on offense, but there's too many big names on offense to only score 3 points against Washington. Come on, that's a joke. So there's not really much you can say about that. Washington isn't, a top tier offense. Now, defensively, I will give Washington credit. Their defensive line is pretty good, but the Cowboys should have been able to perform much better than they did that Sunday. So my second half prediction for them, I think they finished 5-11. Now, I say they missed the playoffs, but in that, well, yeah, I think in that division, 5-11 won't be good enough. I do think the winner of that division probably only has like 7 wins, which, best case scenario, none of the teams there are playing well. The Eagles are leading the division at 3-4-1 right now, but yeah, Cowboys will finish 5-11. So now that we've covered that, first half's over. Heading into the second half, where now we can start looking at playoff positioning. MVP race should start taking shape, and I think it's going to be an exciting second half because there are some teams who are on the outside looking in who can definitely make their way into the playoff race. There's some teams who may have overperformed in the first half that could come back down to earth in the second half. Look at you, Pittsburgh. I don't see you going 16-0, but the schedule's there for them. Oddly enough, there could be a team that's out of the playoff race right now that finds its way into the playoff race by the end of the season. So yeah, the NFL season is just going to start picking up because we know Bill Belichick's words are the NFL season doesn't really start until you turn the calendar to November. Well, that's the position we're in right now. So definitely want to see, which teams can smooth their rough edges and become a better team. And maybe some of the teams at the bottom play their young guys and hope to get a higher draft pick for this offseason. But, it's enough with that. But looking at tonight's matchup, Green Bay Packers, San Francisco 49ers. Looking at this matchup, it is a good matchup on paper. I will say that. Past couple of Thursday night games have been a little iffy. This one is a good one. Both teams come into this matchup, though, with COVID-related issues. The 49ers closed their facility yesterday. They put 4 players on the COVID watch list. Green Bay has some injuries, and I think Green Bay put a player or 2 on their COVID list as well. So, short week as well. It's a game where it may be a little sloppy early on, but ultimately I do think the better team should win tonight. We'll get into that later on, but both teams are coming off of a loss. 49ers, they lost their tight end, Garoppolo, who just came back. He got hurt, so he was lost again in that game. They lost 37-27 to the Seahawks, which isn't a big deal, but it's more about their injuries that made it a bigger loss than it was. Green Bay is coming off a bad loss to Minnesota. Minnesota's at the bottom of that division, and Green Bay just couldn't get their offense together. We had all that talk about Green Bay needs wide receiver help for the trade deadline. This is what happens when you don't give Aaron Rodgers help, even though the help that was there has been good all these weeks up before this, but last week against Minnesota, see, they don't have any help, which is, one of my many reasons for not being that high on Aaron Rodgers, but whatever. So both teams are looking to turn the tide, get back in the win column. For Green Bay, they're in a division race with Chicago. They would like to put some distance there. San Francisco is hoping to, without their top performing tight end, George Kittle, without their starting quarterback, Jimmy Garoppolo, they're hoping to not fall too far out in the NFC West race. They're at the bottom of the division right now. They're sitting at 4-4. They are like two and a half games out of first. So hopefully they can, steady the ship And if Garoppolo can come back this year, maybe some other parts can come back too. Hopefully they can make a late season run at a playoff spot. So speaking of players that are out, San Francisco, they don't have George Kittle. I just said he broke his foot. Still not really sure how long he's going to be out, but he is on IR, so at least 3 games. Tevin Coleman, their running back, he's still out. Garoppolo, like I said, who literally just came back, he got hurt again. It's a different injury because before it was an ankle, now he has a high ankle sprain. Green Bay actually got some good news before the game because I do think Aaron Jones is going to give it a go and play tonight. He was questionable, but it looks like he's going to try to play. That's good for Green Bay. I believe they're getting Evan Lazard back as well. That should help their passing game. But like I said with San Francisco, they have some big names on the COVID list now. Deebo Samuel, top young wide receiver. Brandon Ayuk? I think it's Ayuk. Their rookie wide receiver. Trent Williams, their right tackle, are on the COVID list. Obviously, they're not playing tonight. So there's a lot of big names missing in this matchup, mostly on the San Francisco side. And with that, Nick Mullins will get the start for San Francisco. Nick Mullins is not a household name. He's not a starting quarterback in the league. He is a backup, but in this situation, he's got to make a spot start, and he's gonna have to go out there, protect the ball. Do not give Green Bay any short field or anything like that. Make quick decisions in terms of, finding an open receiver, getting on the ball. Don't stand back there, pat the ball, throw late. That's where you get cheap turnovers. And right now, the San Francisco team can't afford any of that. So, transitioning into the key for San Francisco, their running game is going to have to be effective. Green Bay has struggled against the run, so San Francisco is going to need Jermichael Hasty. What's the other guy's name? There's a second running back in San Francisco because they do use a 2 running back system, and both of those guys are going to have to perform well. Stay in front of the chains. No second and 9, second and 10, third and 8. No, they can't afford that. So if the 49ers can, take advantage of Green Bay's ineffectiveness against the run, they will give themselves a shot. Play the time of possession game, keep Aaron Rodgers on the sideline, and San Francisco will be all right. Look on the other side. For Green Bay to win, load the box, stop the run, force Nick Mullins to beat you with his arm. Nick Mullins has not shown the ability to do this, so that's clearly going to be the easiest way for Green Bay to win. Even you can, cause a turnover or so. Give, Aaron Rodgers a short field. Let the offense start to feel good about itself. Because, like I said, there was a lot of talk coming out of last week's game that these wide receivers aren't good enough. And Jerick McKinnon. So, just to backtrack, Jerick McKinnon is the other running back in the group. So yeah. Basically, come down to running games. Can Green Bay stop San Francisco from running it? And can San Francisco be effective running the ball, play time of possession, make Nick Mullins' job easier? So thinking about all that, Green Bay is coming into this game as a 7-point favorite on the road. And I'm taking Green Bay in this matchup. Wait, did I say -7? That's wrong. I don't know where I got that number from. Hold on. It is, yeah, it's 2.5. Where did I get 7 from? So Green Bay is a 2.5 point favorite going into this matchup against the 49ers, and I'm taking Green Bay in this matchup. I feel like 2.5 is way too low for this one, but the line makers probably see San Francisco being able to run, which will then limit the possessions for Green Bay. So I get it, but I would take Green Bay in this one. Give me 27 to 16. That's where I'm going. So with that, it's the start of week 9. I'm going to go ahead and give you my top 10 teams going into the week. There's been a little bit of movement based off of last week's, and I do have one new team into my top 10. So I will start at 10. Number 10 team, Los Angeles Rams. They did drop a little bit in my 10 because they've kind of stumbled a little bit here past couple of weeks, but I do still think that they are a top 10 team. Goff has been all right. The running game's been good with Brown. They still have Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, so they have weapons on the outside. Defensively, I would like to see them be a little bit better, but giving the Rams a 10. At 9, I have the Saints. They are new into my top 10. I've held them out long enough. I put them in the top 10 mainly because the Titans have fallen off, Bears fallen off, so I want the Saints here. Then 8, I have the Packers, because like I said, that loss to Minnesota really dropped them in my top 10. I do think at the end of the day, they should win that division. They should be in the playoffs at least. Having Lazard back should help Green Bay. There could be some wide receivers who pop up in terms of the waiver wire that they can add. But yeah, I think for that division, they're fine. Playoffs, then they can worry about that there. So I got Green Bay at 8. The Colts have moved up to 7 reluctantly. Like I said, I'm still not sold on Phillip Rivers. I've never been a big Phillip Rivers fan. But they do keep winning, so. And it's mainly because of their pass defense. It's a pass-happy league. They have one of the top pass defenses in the league. So because of that, I had them in my top 10, and I moved them up to 7 this week. 6, I have Baltimore, who did drop a little bit after that game against Pittsburgh. But, Pittsburgh went into that game as the only undefeated team. Baltimore struggled early, came back, had a chance to win late. So, I can't really drop Baltimore too much for that. I do still need to see more out of Lamar Jackson. He's kind of becoming predictable to guard against. You put a spy on him, keep him from running, force him to throw the ball. And I did notice in that Pittsburgh game, he can throw kind of a wobbly football. That can get you in trouble later on into the season when weather becomes an issue. So I got the Ravens there. 5, I have Arizona. Arizona moved up definitely from last week after. There's something about Arizona. I like watching them play. I like the whole Kyler Murray, dual threat aspect. I'm still in awe of Larry Fitzgerald. Larry Fitzgerald has always been one of those wide receivers that I, just love watching play. He's a great route runner. He's got great hands, which is best thing a young quarterback needs. Reliable options in the middle of the field. DeAndre Hopkins, who is arguably the best wide receiver in the league, gets out of Houston, in Arizona, has been a big piece for them. So I got Arizona at 5. Top 4's kind of stayed the same. So I have Seahawks still at 4. Still a big fan of Russell Wilson. I know they got a good win against San Francisco, so keeping them at 4. I got the Chiefs at 3. Some people may probably have the Chiefs higher, like 2 or whatever, but I'm keeping the Chiefs at 3. I still want to see a little more. See if, well, I'm not going to really hurt Kansas City too much because they're going to be in the playoffs. They're going to be a factor in the AFC playoffs. Factor to get back to the Super Bowl. I kind of think they're sort of riding the wave through the regular season. So, and I get it. You're the defending champion. You don't want to burn yourself out. 2, I have Tampa Bay. They're still at 2 for me. They get Antonio Brown this weekend. I do want to see what the offense looks like with him. Does he take production away from Mike Evans? Because remember that first game Brady Brown had in New England, Brady was looking for Antonio Brown over other wide receivers a couple of times. So I want to see if that happens again this weekend. But yeah, their running game's been better than I thought. The defense, actually getting to see the defense play a few times this year. The defense is better than I thought. Brady, I wasn't really worried about him, but the offense is starting to come around, so I got them at 2 and then a 1. Pittsburgh's the undefeated team. You got to give them the respect. They're the best team in the league right now. I do have some questions with Big Ben because I want to see, can Big Ben make it a whole season and continue playing well? I would not be shocked that there's a little bit of drop off in his production later into the year, but they are my number 1 team, and there's my top 10. Just to give you a quick recap: Rams at 10, Saints 9, Packers 8, Colts 7, Ravens 6, Cardinals 5, Seahawks 4, Chiefs 3, Buccaneers 2, Steelers number 1 team. Yeah, so there we are. Like I said, I wanted to get this episode out to you guys before the Thursday night game started, so you can listen to it before the game starts, get a good feel for what you're gonna see. But also looking what's coming ahead. So as we get closer to the weekend, we'll take a look at the rest of Week 9 in the NFL, rest of my picks. Do some NBA news, as remember Friday's the deadline to get kind of the season situated as to when they're going to start, when the season will end, how many games. We'll definitely talk about that. I do still have to do the Kyrie versus AI. I'm going to work that into one of these episodes. Also start looking ahead to the NBA draft. Look at some of the prospects you'll be hearing from early, kind of see how they'll fit, who they compare to, stuff like that. There's plenty of news coming down the line. So, first time listening, hope you enjoyed yourself, like what you heard. You can like the Facebook page, Chomp at the Bit, wherever you're listening to it, whether it's Spreaker, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, whatever. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you can get your episodes as soon as I drop them. Also follow the show on Twitter at Chompin Podcast, where you can, message me on there. Also the YouTube channel, which is under my name, Kyle Edwards, but all the episodes are there as well. You can follow my YouTube channel. Many avenues for you. Choose the one that works best for you. And for those of you who listen to a lot of these episodes, thank you as well. Appreciate it. As I always say, be safe out there. and I'll definitely catch you on the next episode. All right.